Cody, what's the MER impact of a second child?
What do you mean?
You've had a couple weeks to measure. Is it good for performance, bad for performance?
Not good. Don't do it. Don't do it if you care about your health, your sleep, your sanity, your MER. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a lot more challenging. Got our hands full.
And what, 1 month, 2 months after the CEO role, so you're just stacking them on top of each other now.
Just add it on.
I love it.
Hasn't been a smooth. Hasn't been a smooth ride to start the year. Lots going on.
That's exciting though.
That's how it goes sometimes. Yeah, definitely.
One challenge after another. All right,
Bring
cool.
it on.
Well, I'm out in Minnesota right now visiting my brother and his wife and my fiance. Connor is out in LA right now, I think on some work Ridge duty. Yeah. Are you out doing some Ridge things in LA?
It's a bit of business and pleasure. We've got a VP of marketing starting this week, so we're going to onboard in person, which is super exciting. I'll be at the office in Santa Monica. Our CEO, Sean Frank's birthday is today, so I had dinner with him last night.
Nice.
Doing, currying favor with the boss. And and then my brother's running a marathon this weekend. So I'm checking a lot of boxes in just a couple days here.
Wow, amazing. You said office in Santa Monica. What's that setup like? Do you have a little Ridge HQ in Santa Monica?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we got it. We moved in just before the pandemic started when we were like, we're all going to work in person. We had people commuting in. We were doing that for about 3 months. And then pandemic started and everybody went remote. So right now we've kept the office. It's been nice for, if we're doing like executive offsites, if we're doing onboarding in person. We've got the original founders are still here in Santa Monica. So they work out of the office quite a bit. So you've got maybe 10 to 12 people on any given day working out of there, but relatively small percentage of the workforce. But helpful for all the stuff I got to do with the VP this week.
Oh, very cool. And I didn't know you. So I knew you were hiring for the VP. I didn't know you made the hire. So, well, first off, congrats. That's very exciting. I'm sure that's a big weight off your chest and load off your plate of work. What details can you share on that? Like, where'd you find them? What kind of responsibilities and things are you dishing onto their plate?
Yeah. So they were referred from some like mutual friend of the brand. They'd been in consulting. They worked at Wayfair for a while. So like this woman's just extremely tactical. What we were looking for is two things. One, I would like someone to better own what I would describe as like our owned marketing channels, CX, retention, partnerships, and organic social. As we bring more things to market, as we're introducing the products where we can have like longer, more natural LTVs, like what are the channels that are dealing with customers on the front lines or just our community or our warmest prospects, people like that? And how do we tell like a more cohesive, thoughtful strategy on a day-to-day basis? And that just level of coordination, I think requires, someone directing those teams. So that's one key piece. And I think there's a lot of exciting ways for that to go. That quickly becomes like way more nuanced retention strategies, and we have a lot of opportunity there. And then the second one is, and I talk about this quite a bit, we're obviously launching so many more products this year. I think we have like 100 and I think this was last year, we had like 120 go-to-market items. I think we got more this year. So she's going to run all the go-to-market strategy.
That's like, insane.
Putting together, yeah.
Over that. Oh my God. Over 120 go-to-market items. Holy crap.
And some of those are much bigger than others, obviously. But like, yeah, I mean, February was crazy. We had like the last couple of weeks, we've been doing like 3 or 4 go-to-market item reviews between like new promos, new products. We were launching a loyalty program this week. That's on there. So just all sorts of stuff. And I've been spending a lot of time and energy like with those marketing summaries, making sure we're briefing creative the way that they need, making sure that our channel strategies are thoughtful and kind of like leveling up in the way that we need or laddering up in the way that we need. I'd like for her to own all of that. So own channels, go to market are kind of the two big things. And having come from Wayfair, I think she's incredibly tactically strong marketer. Wayfair launches thousands of SKUs every year. They have millions of SKUs on their site. So someone who's just like operationally savvy and like doing everything that we need, I think will be a huge benefit to the business. And that's what we'll get going on this week.
Exciting. As far as like org chart goes, are they sitting in between you and all of like the channel leads on retention, organic, social,
yes.
Community? Nice. Okay. So that's exciting. So you just took like 4 or 5 direct reports off of your plate, and now you're going
Yeah.
through this new hire, this woman from Wayfair.
Exactly.
Very cool. Very cool.
And so I'm excited about that. So like my plan is that'll be a not only will it save me time, like a significant amount of time, but I think all of those channels will benefit from deeper involvement from a VP level leader. Like I just think there's a lot of meat on the bone when it comes to retention or partnerships or all of that. So like I think with one person I can save time, and then those channels can actually like up level quite a bit. So I'll have the VP of marketing, I'll have the creative director reporting into me, and then we've still got kind of like the paid media and growth team. So it's like ecom, tech, performance, creative, things like that will still roll up into me. But that's kind of how I'm seeing the different silos of the marketing team.
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think friend of the Operators Network, Shireen, I might be butchering her last name, Shireen Aubert. She was one of the first. I looked at her role, and I was like explaining some of the problems I was having, and I'm like, how do you possibly manage all these functions of the business and still like have giving your input or your direction in like a useful way? And her answer was so simple, and it's really struck with me. Is just this like concept of like adding layers of insulation. Like you have 4 direct reports, and it's too much. Like you add someone in between you and those people, and like you can still get your input into those channels strategically. Right. But now it's going through someone else, and it's up to that person to get a little bit more in the weeds. You get more in the weeds as you get closer to the people owning those channels. And I thought that was like just a really simple but useful concept to think about when you kind of hit that tipping point on like, wow, I have like 7, 8 direct reports. This is way too many. Like I'm probably not giving any of these channels enough attention. Bang, add in that layer of insulation and cut it down, which is basically what you've done with this new hire.
100%. And so you guys can imagine, we don't need to get too far into the Ridge org chart, but the creative director just came on in August. So like before that, it was like almost a completely flat marketing organization. I had all of our senior designer, our photographer, like our creative project manager rolling up into me, all the retention channels or the own channels that I mentioned, and then all the growth team. So over the last 6 months, there's been a big focus on senior experienced leaders. I think I have the clearest view on what success will look like than I've ever had. So that's just helped with hiring, and I think will hopefully lead to, some successful team building.
Very cool.
That's
Very
awesome.
cool.
Happy for you. Happy to hear.
Same.
Excited to hear how it works out.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, we got a fun one today. Before we get into it, I want to thank our sponsors, Motion, Rich Panel, Prescient, Aftersell, and House.
If you haven't heard, Motion has launched Expert Agents, one of the coolest AI solutions I have seen thus far. It is a way to analyze your ads and complete creative research tasks using AI-enabled workflows. Expert Agents right now are created and owned by different experts in the D2C space like Dara Denny and Barry Hott. You can think of them almost like apps in an app store. Whether you're an agency, a solo consultant, or a talented brand operator, you can reach out and explore building your own Expert Agent with Motion. For brands, if you simply want to speed up workflows and find hard-to-discover creative insights automatically, you should get Expert Agents working for you in your Motion dashboard. You can check it out at motionapp.com/expert-agents to learn more.
All right, let's get into it. So there's been a lot of chatter amongst us, in our group chat, but also just across all of the DTC ecom community about what's the state of Meta right now? There's a lot of chatter about, at some point at the end of Q3, early Q4, Meta adjusted its algorithm to really start going after people that were ready to convert in market. And there's just a lot of chatter about unlocking Meta as a top of funnel channel again. Now, I think when you're at, 9 figures, and probably even under that, like Meta's always going to transform, at least in some regard, to targeting people that are ready to convert, middle, bottom of funnel. But, I think most of our brands were also built on Meta being a top of funnel channel. And I know Hexclad really relied on Meta and still does for a very long time. But over time, it's just become more and more middle bottom of funnel. So I guess like question for you guys, like why are we even talking about like diversifying away from the Meta purchase conversion campaign, which is what a lot of this chatter has been about in the last, call it 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Connor, you wanna answer that one first?
Yeah. So I think this relates back to a conversation Cody and I had with Matt a couple months ago. Was ultimately what we're supposed to do as marketers is drive incremental returns. And it feels as if over time, Meta has developed the platform in a way that it can very easily become less incremental. And what I mean by that is, if you think about advantage shopping, the removal of exclusions, the attribution window going from 28-day click to 7-day click, advertisers only optimizing for click-based outcomes. It just ends up, you are asking Meta to go further and further down funnel to attribute sales to itself, and that can very quickly become less incremental. So when we talk about driving top of funnel awareness, I think what we're all looking for is better incremental results. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. That's how I think about it at the very least. And it feels like we have to be more creative in aligning what Meta is doing with our ultimate objective. And that comes down to like different forms of optimization. How do you guys feel about that as a summary?
Agreed. And I think there's probably more to it. So I'll add some more. But I think the one part that we've discussed this ad nauseum is like incremental is not the same as acquisition. And I mean, it's going to depend on every brand. I think it's very incremental, or at least Meta can still be very incremental. And but it maybe isn't as incremental as new customers as you want. And then in addition to that, I also think it can be incremental on new customers, but not great at reaching new prospects, right? Not great at reaching, like serving net new impressions, but maybe when people have gotten impressions on, and haven't purchased, but have gotten impressions on other channels, Meta is very good at kind of sniping them off and being incremental. So I think there's kind of different levels to it. We still do see it being very incremental, just not great at reaching new people and not nearly as efficient as we would like it to be, even though it does drive a significant part of our business. So I think that's it. I think there's a bunch going on. All of the ASC of everything makes it really challenging. I think exclusions just don't work the same post iOS. Like you're just going to have 30-40% leakage no matter how hard you try. And I also think that this whole like optimizing for like third-party data is also a pretty terrible decision that I'm not understanding why they do it. And I think that that is making things even less incremental. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on. And I also think just like the whole broad everything, like it just seems like it's so hard to get out of this little like vicious cycle of just going after the same people. And obviously creative diversity is the key, but it's so much easier said than done.
Just one point of clarification. If you could explain one more time what you guys are seeing, that it is incremental, but not necessarily with new prospects. So are you guys seeing it drive returning customer revenue?
Yeah, I'd have to look at one of our tests, but yeah, it does. And no matter how hard we try to exclude, changing all of the exclusions, there's still like 30-40% leakage. So like 30% of our spend is actually going to repeat customers. And it is incremental on them, but it's not, that's not our main goal with Meta is to drive, repeat revenue. So we really, need new customers to grow our business and need to find ways to reach new people. And Meta is just getting much harder to reach new people. And obviously there are ways of reaching new people, but those also, we want to make sure they're profitable as well. That's kind of like the catch-22.
Yeah.
It's not, that's the thing. It's not, incrementality is not that hard. I think most channels that we've tested have been incremental with House outside of like Google brand search, but it doesn't mean that they are all good places to put our dollars. Are they incremental and efficient enough at the KPIs we need and on new customers? So you need this like perfect storm of all of them. And it's a challenge finding that at times.
I will say, I feel like we need to a term needs to be defined here. And I don't think we do it necessarily in this moment, but jumping through the hoops of incremental and profitable, explaining that seems totally redundant. Maybe room for a new acronym, maybe You just smash up some words, find a new term. Great branding opportunity for someone like a house.
What does House call it now? I think it's like CPIA, right? It's like cost per or CPIO. It's like cost per incremental order in like
IROs and CPIO. But even that, it's like we incremental and efficient is the point. We could take it as a next step from here. But obviously, like I think there aren't all that many brands thinking about it to that level, and we can't just be saying all those words forever. Great opportunities to get a little more efficient, create some sort of nomenclature.
Drop your ideas in the YouTube comments here so we can get some new vernacular rolling. Cody, that's interesting to hear the data you're seeing on your meta spend, like 30-40% driving repeat orders, at least based on our Northbeam data. For us, it's still 95% plus first time orders. Now, granted, I'm sure some of that is like, hey, this person bought on Amazon or maybe they bought in Costco and they've been shopping around our site and now they've converted. We know that there's absolutely some of that going on. But for the most part, based on our MTA data, we're seeing mainly Meta driving first time order revenue and all of our orders being first time orders for the most part. But I think that's like the tricky part in our like data overload ecosystem we operate in now is like, it's hard to suss out what that really means, because what we've found is that oftentimes we'll see high net new visit rate, we'll see high percentage of first time orders, but when we run the incrementality holdout test, it is incremental. We're seeing incremental orders, but the cost per incremental order we're getting is just not a number that we would be comfortable with. So it's like, what is the role here? Like, what that's telling me is that we are actually showing ads to a lot of people at some point where we just did not need to show them ads anymore. Like they were already going to convert, but we spent into, we're showing them more ads. We're trying to find that sweet spot here. So like for us, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at like rolling reach, which has gone down for us, like down to the single digit percentage where the amount of people are actually reaching for the first time on purchase conversion campaigns is like some months less than 10% of our total reach. We're looking at net new visit rate, first time order rate, 1 day click ROAS, and like trying to paint this and then layering that on top of what our holdout testing data is showing us to be like, okay, we're actually overspending here on purchase conversion campaigns. And if you layer these data sources on top of one another, you can clearly see that. But like, it's really hard to see if you're only looking, like if you were only looking at an MTA, at least with our data, it'd be really hard to understand that because like I said, the net new visit rate's high, the first time order rate is high. So you wouldn't really, it'd be hard to find that point of diminishing return. Like what are the data points that you guys are seeing? Like I think Connor, you've been doing a lot of this, it sounds like in your Meta account. Like what were the data points that you were like, hey, we got to diversify away from purchase conversion here because it's just not, we're hitting a ceiling on acquisition?
Yeah. So I will say our journey over the last couple months was interesting. It really started in Q4 where we started seeing issues with Meta. And I talked about this on the podcast. So for the loyal listeners, it might not be all that new, but we saw Facebook underperformed dramatically on a click basis during Q4, where we were just not driving the clicks, not seeing the conversions that we needed. We could tell things were not penciling out from a top line perspective, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what was odd to us at the time was one of our best performing campaigns was just optimizing for view content, which we've done kind of on and off for years. For many reasons, like imperfect attribution, there only being a 7-day click. Like I can totally understand why it is not advantageous to have your entire ad account optimizing for purchase events. It is also on the flip side odd to say, hey, as soon as we optimize for view content, like that's performing best. Like those were like the signs to me that were pointing towards like us needing to do something significantly different in our Meta account. So that period in November really kicked off a lot of testing. So over the last couple months, we've been experimenting with large percentage of our Meta ad account going towards different forms of optimization. And when I say different, we're actually only optimizing for view content. And the reason I like view content a lot is we drop people on landing pages. We're optimizing for a PDP view. So you're basically optimizing for a browsing visitor, which I would love to have more of those out in the world. And if we can do that at a lower cost per click, a higher CTR, a lower CPM, we can serve more impressions, then I think that's good for the business. So we basically experimented with how much of our budget is going towards this content, view content optimized campaigns. And then our source of truth almost solely is just house in that. Because as soon as you start optimizing away from purchases, everything else just looks bad. One day click ROAS looks bad in MTA. ROAS doesn't look good within Meta. It is incredibly hard to understand, at least from my experience, how much value you're creating. And that's why I've always been so skeptical about it for other brands, is it's really easy to be like, we need to spend 10% of our budget on reach optimized campaigns. And I think it's really easy to just give your money away to Meta and not drive any sort of impact. So we have been rigorously measuring with holdouts to understand that incremental impact. And what we found is it's some of the most incremental stuff that we could do, that we're getting our most incremental and profitable performance in certain instances from these view optimized campaigns. So that's where we've landed over the last couple months. And to wrap this up, I think it comes from a number of things. One, I think it's the scale of our brand, that we are large enough and old enough where we have to be doing things that are a little more out of the box than someone who's doing 10 million a year or something like that. And then two, I think it is a byproduct of Meta Ads Manager development. Like, I just think we have to be, some combination of those two leads us to this being a more optimal setup for our account.
Yeah, you think if you were at your size 5 years ago, would you think you would have had to do it? It's hard to know. It's impossible to know, but do you think?
Because you're not even saying, if we were 5 years ago, we were doing 30 million a year. If we were in today's environment, do we have to optimize?
No,
for
I was saying,
content?
maybe you can answer that. I was thinking the other way. If you're the revenue that you're at now, but in 2021 or 2020,
do we have to do that?
Yeah, would you have had to run view content then?
Yeah. You're right. Impossible to say. I'd say probably not. Like, again, that's pre all these things that we've talked about that have made it harder for Meta to optimize for incremental purchases, to take credit for conversions that are happening. So yeah, we probably don't have to do it 5 years ago.
Connor,
and sorry, the last thing I'll say is, like, I talk to other brands, really big brands that can run their entire account at purchase optimized events. Like, some people can really do it. Brands 10 times the size of Ridge are doing that.
Do they have something where they're getting like a disproportionately higher percent, like, or just traffic from other sources that maybe would be feeding Meta, some signal? Like, do they have giant influencer programs or giant TV budgets or something like that, or big retail distribution, anything like that?
They're obviously the brand that I'm thinking of that is like 6 or 7 times bigger than Ridge, has a very diversified marketing mix. I'm sure Meta is still the largest. It's the lion's share of their budget. For them, I actually think it's more a matter of TAM. It's just like a way bigger category. And it's a way more like in-market category. There's just naturally people shopping there. When I'm talking about, it's kind of like what you talked about earlier, Cody, but like, we need to be driving net new interest in minimalist wallets. Like, that just doesn't happen otherwise. If I'm selling rugs, for instance, like, I just spent so much money at Ruggable. Ruggable's not the example that I'm thinking of, but like, I had to redecorate my house. I had to get rugs. That's happening to millions of people a year. You are naturally going in market and beginning to shop. And I think purchase optimized can work better for a category like that than someone who actually needs to be driving that net new interest. If you're running an e-com brand, you know the game of maximizing AOV, and that's exactly what Aftersell does. Over 35,000 e-commerce brands, including all of us at Marketing Operators, trust Aftersell to power their upsells and increase their AOV by 30% on average. Their upselling suite works from checkout all the way to the thank you page. Here's a few things that help Aftersell stand out. One, you've got one-click post-purchase upsells, which we talked about on episode 40 with Shane and 33 with Zach Stuck. It's a great way to drive revenue without adding friction or expecting the customer to re-enter payment. Two is you get checkout upsells, which we use heavily at Ridge, and they have the ability to monetize your thank you page with their free Rocked Thanks, formerly known as network offers. Some real numbers from Aftersell users, up to 35% increase in conversions and over a 16% average conversion rate. If you're not optimizing your upsells with Aftersell, you're leaving easy money on the table. Book your free demo today and get Aftersell for 60 days free. Go to aftersell.com/operators to claim the offer.
Do you know if this brand you're referencing, do you know if they're seeing like, so you're saying this brand's like 5 to 6x times the top line revenue scale of Ridge. Do you know if they're, and maybe not, but are they like seeing really, are they still like reaching new people? Like, are they still seeing high rolling reach percentages? And like, are they doing holdout tests at like testing scaled spend thresholds and being like, wow, like this is still a really acceptable cost per incremental order? Like, do you know if they're doing that or yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, totally. It was funny. I don't have all that many details. I don't know about rolling reach. What I will say about rolling reach, and just for all the listeners, it's something that naturally declines over time, right? So if I'm selling something that has an incredibly high average order value that someone might only be in market for, once or twice a year or something, if that, I'm sure they've hit every person in America multiple times, and they're not too worried about like the saturation of that. They just need to remain top of mind for when you're ready to make that big purchase. So I don't think rolling reach is quite right for everybody, or at least not at all times. And then the second one was they definitely do geo-lift studies, and they definitely see incremental lifts on all their channels. They're a very tactically smart brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think depending on category and size, all these caveats, et cetera, more than possible for someone to be driving incremental results, even with all purchase optimized. But at least for us, we haven't found that to be the case as of late.
Yeah. Did you, going back to the first data point you had that made you like go and try to scale this view content tactic, you said you rolled out view content during Q4 and it was your highest performing campaign. So was it your highest performing on like an MTA based return on ad spend? Oh, wow. Okay. Amazing.
Like basically, and that's what it was like. I mean, maybe not the highest, but like incredibly well performing to the point that it was like, oh, something weird is going on here. Like if the best MTA results we can do is optimizing for not purchase, something strange is happening in the account currently.
Yep.
So that's what really started us down the rabbit hole. What I'll also say is, Cody, I mean, you've been saying for a couple months now that your guys' quiz funnel optimization is one of your most incremental.
It was. And then just how the years go, and we tested again, spend increase test, shit the bed. Not very good. So we'll see. Nick was saying that he's seen some weird stuff with like 3-cell tests, he told us today. So we'll probably run a 2-cell with it again and just see. We had nowhere near the spend that you guys had on it. But yeah, that was super disappointing. So, the scientific method got to just repeat and just test again and see if what seems to hold up, because I was pumped about that as well. I mean, that was our most efficient, but it was so good. I was very skeptical of that one. Maybe it wasn't enough data during Q4. So we will certainly test that again. What are you guys going to do from here? What besides just adopting that? Are you going to roll out any other tests? Are you going to test like are you going to test any non-purchase on other channels? Are you going to test any other events on Meta? Like where are you going from here?
Yeah, good question. The other interesting tests that we've run, so we've been doing these top of funnel optimizations and measuring that. And one thing I'll just call out there is, here, I have it written down. On our top of funnel optimized campaigns, we basically saw like a 5x incrementality factor from what Meta was reporting. How does that strike you guys? I think that's an extremely high multiple. It doesn't, what I'm not saying is we're not getting like a 4x incremental ROAS. It's not like, oh, Meta's reporting a 1x and we're getting a 5x. Like we are basically like unit economic profitable, which I'm super comfortable with, particularly in this case. I think we're introducing new people to the brand. We're serving a lot of really affordable CPMs. The 5x to me stands out as just like, oh yeah, there's a lot of conversions happening that Meta just doesn't understand how to attribute to itself for all those reasons. There's lots of people making purchases online, but because Facebook can't attribute those purchases to Meta in a 7-day click window, we're just not serving ads to those people.
Right.
So that was one. So we understood that. Moving forward, we're just going to go ahead, Connor.
I was going to say, by the way, to answer your question so first off, you're saying the cost per incremental order you're seeing is 5x the CPA that you're seeing in platform on that campaign, right? That's what you mean by the incrementality factor.
The ROAS is 5x.
The ROAS. Yeah. I don't even know how to react to that, because like we're actually in the middle of our first non-purchase conversion holdout test right now, and like we have to run it for a really long time because of our consideration window. So I'm hoping it. Like I was looking at the data today, and like the ROAS is super, super low. So I'm hoping we have a massive incrementality factor on that.
Oh, don't even look. What event are you optimizing for?
We're doing view content as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, when we run reach campaigns, we're probably at like a 0.1 ROAS in platform.
Yeah.
On our quiz, we're probably at 0.25. Like it just can't be how you look at it and measure it.
Yeah.
Especially for how long are you guys running it for?
We're running it for like 2 months.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, the thing, and Meta has shared some data. I've even seen it, like, this stuff does best with like 6 months. Like, this is like full funnel marketing
for sure
that I don't think we can measure as like performance market. Like, you can with the holdout, but I think like the longer you can run it and be patient. So when we originally did our reach campaigns, we ran a 2-week reach test, and we found it was actually like slightly incremental, but like not profitable. And so we're like, all right, but there's something here. Where do we go from here? And we ran, I think, a 6-week test with maybe like a 6-week look back or something like that. And we were like pretty happy with it. It was pretty good. And then we ran I think we ran a 12-week after that. We're like, hey, we think it's pretty good. The results look pretty good. We're going to run it evergreen. There's no harm in just putting a 5% holdout on it or 10% holdout and, seeing how it goes. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we ran a YouTube reach test, and I think we did like a 3-week test. And I realized it was just so stupid in hindsight. Like, if we are going to run this style of thing where we're trying to find new people who are not in market, like, we just have to give it long enough. So
right.
Yeah, especially for your guys' consideration and
totally.
and where you are at your maturation curve and how much you guys are spending. Yeah. I think that's the thing.
That was our strategy. Like, we were very intentional about launching it right after the big game sale ended. And then we're running the test basically right up until Mother's Day sale launches. And then we're having the post, the observation window run through Mother's Day. So we were like, all right, let's give it a solid 6 weeks to run, build the funnel. Let's let a funnel clearing event happen, because we think that's the best shot of getting the best read possible. So like, we were very intentional about that. What I'm very bullish on right now is the upper funnel metrics are looking good. Now, I was expecting, it's a view content optimized, right? So it's literally optimizing for someone to go and like visit a landing page. It's like, of course, outbound click-through rate's going to look great. CPCs look good. CPMs are looking good just because it's a less competitive auction, I think. What I'm most bullish on as the soft metric is our add to cart. Our cost per add to cart looks really, really, really good on these view content campaigns so far compared to like some of our best purchase conversion campaigns. Did you guys see a similar trend when you've been launching these?
I don't know cost per add to cart off the top of my head. It makes sense. We're driving traffic so much more affordably. We know that they're browsing. We're optimizing for view content. Like, it's not that hard for cost per add to cart to be much cheaper.
Right.
I was going to ask, I think that's a great, one thing that we were battling with was like, what metrics, because we're measuring, there's probably 3 top of funnel campaigns. There's multiple ad sets that we like have now validated at this point are driving an impact, but we only know that it's driving an impact as a group. What metrics are you actually using to optimize between ads or ad sets in order to try to like manage it? At some point, you want to make decisions as to what ads or ad sets are coming on or off. Cost per add to cart is a really good one. Is there anything else that you guys would be looking at to make those optimizations?
Yeah, we haven't even thought about like that for us. The creative was going to be the follow-up test. It's like, okay, if view content proves to be incremental and at a clip that at a cost per incremental order that we think is profitable, or it's not, but like we think that if you give it a long enough time that audience would clear, then we were going to roll into okay, now let's do like a hi-fi creative holdout versus direct response. For like, we were going to do like a creative test. Right now, we basically just have some of our top performing scaled ads in each cell, and we're just keeping the playing field level by doing that. I don't know. That's a good question, because you'd have to optimize that creative for some sort of soft metric if it's never going to turn into a 1-day click ROAS or 1 day or 30, even if it's like a 30-day click, you're never really going to see that data show up. So that's it. I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, I talked to probably a year ago. Talked to one of those other big brands that everybody knows, and they're running, I think, like 25% of their Meta spend on reach, which was wild, but it was what their MMM was showing them, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't really optimize it. We just we put ads in there that we like, and
totally
just let them go." So that's kind of how we did it. I mean, occasionally, I think I will. Like, it depends, I guess, what your objective is. Like, and meaning like the objective that you're telling Meta. Like, if you're going for reach, I'd probably look at CPMs, and if something has a much higher CPM, if you're going for, quiz completions or recontents, like, you should probably be optimizing towards that thing. But it's so different. So I don't know if there's really like a great rhyme or reason. So we haven't done much optimizing at all.
Yeah. So you bring up creative and top of funnel in this brand, just saying they run creative that they like. And I think that's a perfectly good strategy. We also focused on like it's all video content. It's largely like either problem and solution content. So you can think about like us trying to introduce a problem that consumers have. We're talking about bulky wallets or RFID blocking, something like that. That's been exclusively the focus. We're not running any static ads in top of funnel because, again, just kind of like making subjective decisions here, but didn't feel like the right way to introduce someone to the brand if that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's similar to how we've thought about it. We've gone a little bit more educational with our stuff, but it's like definitely non-promo.
If you want to hit next level growth, you need to move away from correlation-based measurement and move towards causality. There is no better way to test your channels, your levels of diminishing return, certain tactics within a channel than using a geo-based incrementality testing tool. And that's exactly what House is. That is exactly why all three of us use House. House is a self-serve experimentation platform that allows you to configure regional test and control experiments to measure incrementality and identify points of diminishing returns. House is really it's the most controlled, the most scientifically sound way to do any sort of marketing testing and experimentation. These things are very, very hard to set up on your own. It's rigorous. If you have one little variable messed up, all of a sudden your data is not trustworthy. That's why House is such a valuable partner. All you need to do is go into your ad accounts and add exclusion or exclusion lists, run the data or run the test. And not only do they set up the test for you, but they also help you interpret all the results. So they're handling experimentation design and experiment analysis, and also even going as far as helping you make sense of what to do based on that data. And we at Hexclad have gotten some insane insights this year from all of our House holdout tests. So our core strategy this year has been doing channel level holdouts to really see which channels are driving the best and most efficient cost per incremental order. So we've tested YouTube, Meta, Google PMax, TikTok. We're now testing AppLovin. We are getting a sense of which channels are driving the most incrementally efficient first-time orders right now. And the amount of insights that come from that information is insane. It helps us inform where we develop creative. It helps us inform where we scale up budgets in certain channels and bring certain budgets down. Plus, we are now able to use our incrementality results and actually plug it right into Prescient. So not only are we getting causal data, that is actual data that we can trust to make decisions off of, but now the media mix models and the probabilistic data from Prescient is even more accurate because they're using actual data to inform their models and the readouts that they're giving us. House is an essential addition to your measurement stack. Go to house.io/operators. That is spelled HAUS.io/operators to start your incrementality practice today.
One of the tests that I think about that you've mentioned, I don't even know if it worked well for you, but just like you tested a lot of variables with the House test at once, and you just added like more videos and like exclusions and stuff, like what you think is the right way. I'm curious how that went for you, because we're launching a similar test, almost like a creative diversity test, but it's also going to be an optimization test because we'll shut stuff off pretty quickly in creative tests on like creative that we think is good, that like meta and platform looks good, but MTA does not look good. And I'm just like, maybe the credit is, maybe we're reaching new audience and maybe they're not purchasing in a 1-day window, but like maybe over a longer period of time, they are, you know, that new ad, that influencer ad with good AIDA metrics and good meta performance is actually doing a pretty good job. And it's kind of the same concept that we're talking about with like, this is why you need upper funnel things to reach new people, even though, you know, the attribution doesn't look great. But I'm even thinking about it within a purchase, sell within a purchase campaign. So have you run anything like that where you've like done different creatives or different optimization in one?
Yeah. So I didn't really finish like our journey, but in December November we really identify the problem. December we start testing like percent of budget going to top of funnel. We get what I thought was kind of like a unclear readout in early January. So we end up running the test again, and that ends up looking really good. This new cell that we have that is a combination of like, I want to say 35% of the budget or so is going to top of funnel. This proved to be very incremental. Now, the tricky thing with that was I would describe there being three things going on within the account. We have true top of funnel optimizations with video content. Then we have our purchase optimized campaigns, and there's two types. There's like our core evergreen products, highlighting gunmetal, carbon fiber, black, the standard stuff we've been selling for a decade plus. And then we had a number of new launches. We launched Alaska Twilight. We had a collab with Peanuts that went live. Those are all purchase optimized. On a one-day click basis, they were like more or less the same, maybe slightly stronger performance on some of the newness. We knew that as a whole, those 3 different types of content were performing much better. So what our next test was we actually broke out top of funnel separately to get the iROS readout on that. We also broke out newness separately and got the iROS on that. And what we found was, and I think I texted you guys about this, obviously top of funnel performed well, but the newness within purchase optimized was incredibly incremental, like far and away. You can imagine, I want to say on a click basis, it was 10, 20% better than our other stuff. It was, this was actually like a crazy readout, but we got like a 4x incremental ROAS, which is like way higher than we run the blended business. So obviously that's pulling a lot of weight in terms of driving performance and revenue. And what that implies basically is that our purchase optimized core campaigns were not driving nearly as much incremental performance as we needed. So what we're at now is we are focusing on newness and purchase optimized campaigns, and then video content and top of funnel optimized campaigns, and then really trying to reduce and hedge against underperforming ads in that like evergreen bucket. So that's kind of where we've explored. Now that's essentially what happened. We're testing a bunch of stuff. We have snapshots in time where we identify we're moving in the right direction, and we've broken those apart, measured them separately, and now we're kind of like reassembling them in a way that we think makes sense. And we'll probably we're just going to consistently test over the next couple of months to like try to find the right balance.
Do you regret testing multiple variables at once, or would you have done that again? Like, does
No.
it, because sometimes when you do that, like I've done that with landing pages, just made a new one. You're like, all right, great, it worked, but like, why? Like, where do we go from here?
Yeah. No, I don't regret it at all. I mean, we were so far from where we needed to be in November and December that it was like, I would much rather, and this is maybe like, it's not like perfect from like a scientific perspective, but I think we could get to what really matters is driving better outcomes, not perfect clarity as to how we drove those better outcomes. And I think we could more quickly get there with more aggressive testing. And then we ran the risk of needing to do what we ended up doing, which was backtracking and like splitting out, well, what were the big changes? How do we piece those out and like test our way into it? But ultimately, I think identifying those earlier, running that, and then like kind of doing a post-mortem essentially to some degree, just meant that we were getting better performance for longer. Now, the risk was we're changing a bunch of stuff. It's not changing for the better. So then we have no clarity and we didn't get better performance. That would have been a pretty shitty place to be, but we luckily avoided that.
Connor, how are you?
What do you think of my test of like different creative and just like not really optimizing off of like of a click within a purchase one?
Your test would be purchase optimized on the content that's getting the strong ADA metrics?
Kind of like for us, maybe it's this like local maximum thing where like newness is very hard for us to scale. Like that we are trying for creative diversity, but the same thing continues just to work in our account. And we'll have some stuff that looks good in Meta, looks good in ADA, but like North Beam one day click just does not look very good. So theoretically, maybe it's just not. It's maybe that's actually a good thing, right? Nothing against like when they click that it's actually reaching people who maybe aren't buying right now, but it's the same theory as like a reach campaign, right? But they'll just totally buy later. So that's our plan is like, we'll take that creative. And so we're really changing 2 variables in that cell. One of it is the creative because they do go hand in hand in the real world. One of them is the creative that we're going to put in there. We're just not going to shut it off, or we're not going to shut it off based on a click attribution, even though it's in a purchase one. And so just that creative, more diversity. And then number 2, just really not optimizing it the same way, optimizing it, not really based on these click-based metrics.
Totally. I think it's a good test. I'm thinking about what you will, it's just a 2-cell holdout. So you'll understand, because this is what we talk about all the time. You could do it, I think you could do it 2 ways. You do a 2-cell holdout and say, hey, we just want to know the iROAS of this type of content. And then you'll get that, but you won't know exactly what everything else did in your account at that time. So you'll just have to kind of gut read of like, hey, this is good or bad. Or you could measure the other half of the account and say, what is this doing? And that would be 2-cell tests so that you have a good understanding of basically BAU versus this new type of content.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to do it, but I do want to compare it against BAU because that's what we're looking for. It's like, what's the best way to do it? Not necessarily like, is this incremental at all? But yeah, that's our plan because I just, like I said, we're just having a hard time with that. So I do think like upper funnel reach, it all makes sense. And, at our sizes, all worth testing it. But I think I'm excited about this test as well.
And, honestly, this is me like venting a little bit, but like ultimately it's just like an endless rabbit hole to go down, because then the next question is like, okay, you've measured theoretically your BAU creative, this new cool type of creative. Okay, let's say like the new creative is better. You can't spend 100% of your dollars on it. Then
Sure.
The next question is like, well, what percentage do you want going to each? Like, how do you allocate between those? And you could just go down that rabbit hole forever.
Yeah.
So that's tricky.
Yeah. Did you guys see? I forget we talked about it. There was a case study that House did with, I think it was Javi Coffee.
Yeah.
And they ran, have you guys seen this one?
The
I
video
don't think so.
creative.
Yeah. So they ran all in purchase optimized, 2 cells. One of them was video ads that they deemed were upper funnel. So kind of think like standard UGC video ads, the ASC, same exact settings, same exact exclusions. The other cell was, again, same setup, but image ads only, much more direct response offers. And what they found was they were both incremental. Don't quote me on it. House has the case study published, but the video one were so much more incremental, and they were so much like the incrementality factor was so much higher, even though they had the same exact media buying setup for both of them.
Yeah. So then it's like, so then what do they do? I mean, I guess in that case, maybe you can justify spending all on video or something like that. Maybe is the next test. But then is that true outside and inside of promo periods, things like that? There's just like all these caveats as businesses change over time. Where I think it ends up being for us is we get clarity during snapshots of time, and then there's ultimately always going to be kind of subjective decisions to make that you're just going to have to feel comfortable with and continue to like make sure that MER and CACs are like penciling out the way that you intend. Because we've given ourselves we got a readout a while back, and we even had suspicions of it earlier that like video content does drive better incremental performance. So we just hold ourselves to a certain percentage of our ad spend within a given category going to videos. I don't want 75% of my budget going to static ads, even if those do have the best MTA results. That just doesn't feel good to me. That is not scientific. We have now validated that and gotten to justifying that percentage through like scientific methods, but I can't tell you exactly that we allocated the right percentage yesterday. So we end up just getting into this weird thing where you're kind of gut feeling it at the end. A little bit of a soft
but you
science.
could say, hey, we need a different, ROAS. We need a different like Northly ROAS for video versus a static. And maybe that's where I'm hoping we get to. Is like, hey, we know that we can accept 20% less on these videos with these whitelisted influencers because we're driving top of funnel with it. Theoretically,
That's a great point. We're going to test whitelisting ads too. That is one where we've tested that many times over the years and have never been able to drive like comparable performance that we have from other purchase optimized campaigns. But maybe one of those things that is actually much more incremental.
Yeah, we'll find out. I'll let you know. Are you guys going to test any view content or similar on other channels now? Like, are you going to go and test this on like a YouTube or a Pinterest or anything or Snap?
We've been testing a lot of like CPM optimized YouTube Shorts campaigns. That's been working well for us. We're also introducing the top of funnel strategy or the top of funnel optimizations into our different categories. So we've proven it out with EDC at like a relatively large percentage of the budget. We've introduced it in smaller pieces to rings and travel.
Okay. That makes sense. It's more critical than ever for marketers to not only understand the full impact of their paid media spend, but where to move dollars to continuously improve results. Prescient AI stands out as the only platform offering daily, omni-channel forecasting and optimization for all your paid media channels without bias. Prescient's halo effects show the often unrecognized performance of upper funnel tactics in channels like YouTube, TV, TikTok, and even newcomers like AppLovin. It's 2025, and marketers need to adjust their measurement toolkit to adapt to the changing landscape of paid media. as brands grow, they need heightened investment in more channels and upper funnel channels, and distribution is probably getting more complicated as well. And like I said, measurement strategies need to evolve, and that's where Prescient comes in. Prescient has been amazing for us, helping us understand which of our channels are performing well, especially hard to measure upper funnel channels like TV, YouTube, etc. It's really allowed us to understand what's driving the results, what the halo impact of these channels is going to be. And it's really given us a lot of precision and confidence to be able to allocate our budget to these channels that maybe they don't look great by traditional measurement, capabilities, but with, advanced measurement, with Prescient, it's actually really helped us get the confidence to scale these channels. And it's been amazing. TV is now 20% of our budget, largely thanks to Prescient being able to understand the impact that it's having. For a lot of brands, there's also just an expanded requirement to understand how your paid media efforts are creating impact across your retail and wholesale channels. And it also does a great job of that with Amazon as well. So I highly, highly recommend using Prescient to be able to understand the full impact that your paid media is having on your business. It'll help you forecast revenue, understand your acquisition costs. You can figure out exactly how much you should be spending on each channel. There's a reason Prescient is trusted by scaling brands like Jones Road Beauty, Hexclad, Safa, Hollow Socks, Coterie, and over 100 more. Prescient is the leading MMM for brands seeking confidence to scale top of funnel and drive omnichannel growth with confidence. Go to prescientai.com/operators to learn more and see it for yourself.
Are you doing more? Are you taking more of your new products now and thinking about them as acquisition products, whereas before you might not have done that based on the newness incrementality readout, or are you already treating a lot of these new products as acquisition focused products?
The categories, rings and travel, have always been acquisition products. We know that we'll need to grow those like via their own funnels and budgets and creative and things. So this is kind of interesting. Within the EDC business, we're launching new colors and designs and things like that. And I was actually worried last year, two things. That one, we would launch new things and they would perform really well within Meta, but I was actually concerned that they weren't incremental. I was like, look, we're sending millions of or emails to millions of people, text to 1 million people. We've got it on the homepage. Like, there's so much awareness being driven that I was worried us launching it within Meta was actually just kind of like soaking up intent that we were generating elsewhere. And because of that, I was worried we were spending too much time developing creative for that newness. That I'm like, oh yeah, we are spending too much time on static ads and new video content. Let's focus on the core evergreen stuff because the newness is going to take care of itself via email, SMS, etc. That was my concern last year coming into this year. And one of the reasons we wanted to test it separately is to say like, yeah, hey, is this actually doing what we expected? And it turns out it was like the opposite of what I believe. That now we're like, oh, actually, we should we can pick our spots a little bit better. I mentioned the 120 go-to-market items. We can't possibly build out an acquisition strategy for each and every one of those. But the ones that we think are going to be hits, we'll have bought bigger in inventory. We should spend more time developing like a more comprehensive go-to-market strategy because we now feel that's the best way to drive new interest in the brand.
Yeah. So was the newness that you were promoting in this test, was this like, it was within everyday carry, so it was wallet, right? Mm-hmm. And then was it like just like a new colorway or a new design pattern, or like what? Is that what it was?
This was a new pattern called Traditional Flash. It was a tattoo wallet. If you guys saw it, I think I sent you guys the landing page. But yeah, it's like yeah,
I think I remember that.
Yeah, flash tattoos. It's like there's a butterfly on it and like a wolf and things like that. It's just like a cool looking design, and it's 2 wallets, 2 key cases. We spent about $80,000 on that campaign, and then we measured the IROs of that. It was maybe 2 or 3 campaigns.
And was that just that product, right? So you had it isolated, and then how'd you have that test set up? So it was like one cell getting exposed to those ads, and then was the other cell business as usual, or was it like, did you also have a cell that was not getting exposed to any Facebook ads?
This was good question. This cell was just a 2-cell holdout. So 60% of the country was able to see these traditional flash ads. 40% of the country was not. We looked at the lift there.
But 40% was still getting business as usual.
Still getting business as usual.
Right. Got it. So it was against a baseline. Got it.
Yes, against the baseline. They were still getting the BAU ads. Yeah. And that was, again, because we'd already proven out, we felt good about the mix that we had for Facebook as a channel. And then during this period, we were testing top of funnel and then the purchase optimized newness separately, getting a read on those. And what we found was extremely incremental purchase optimized tattoo wallet campaigns in iRose that we're incredibly comfortable with in top of funnel. Therefore, and I'm like, extrapolating a little bit, that our purchase optimized evergreen campaigns are not as incremental as we expected. And that's what's led us to like just changing budget allocation between those things a little more. And it's going to change how we're preparing for new launches.
Got it. That makes sense.
Let me, this is another interesting data point that we got. So you guys, I guess, don't deal with like too many new colorways and things, but of the purchases that are attributable to our tattoo wallet designs, how much of the revenue do you guys think came from the tattoo wallets?
Ooh, I like this question.
Good question.
I'm gonna say 50%
of. I'll say 60.
Yeah, it was 60%. So you guys were pretty in the realm. I wasn't sure exactly what to expect, but it is interesting to see, hey, we can actually promote newness, and we sell a lot of other stuff. We're selling a lot of just gunmetal and black wallets. We're bringing in people and interest with cool designs. They're buying something that's a little more standard. What's also interesting about that is in this period, we can look at the incremental ROAS, so the incremental revenue driven by these campaigns was significantly more than all the revenue we did in these tattoo designs. So I actually think if 60% on a click basis, we're like getting super into the weeds here, but on a click basis, 60% of the revenue went to the designs that we were promoting. I actually think if you look at the total incremental impact, it's probably like 30% or something. Like it actually becomes a really small percentage, and that there are many more people who are just like, they whether they're clicking the ad or not, they're seeing it on Instagram, they're coming to the site. The vast majority of people are buying other things. And that will also change the way that we approach budgets moving forward as well. Like, what we tend to do at times is we'll weight all of the spend against the revenue of that product. We'll say, oh, hey, we spent $10 here, we did $20 in revenue. That's like is that a 2-to-1 return? When in reality, that $10 in spend actually probably drove, in this case, $50 in revenue. It's just coming from many different products.
And because you guys track like MER by category usually, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So it kind of throws a wrench in that a little bit, or hopefully makes it even better, I guess, than what you thought.
Yeah, exactly. So MER by category can actually look really good, or top line revenue can look really strong within that category, because promoting the tattoo design is driving so much more than just tattoo design revenue. So anyway, we've been like piecing away a bunch of really interesting stuff on Meta over the last couple months. It's changed our go-to-market strategy quite a bit, the way that we are preparing content and doing budgets. And yeah, the plan is just to continue to refine that over time.
Do you see a different like incrementality factor? Like I wonder if, because like for us, some products that are new, we'll try to run ads for, but like we won't really scale them because the MTA doesn't look great and we haven't ran a holdout on new. But I wonder if it's just like a great way to get people back to site or to site and do that. So like, do you see a different incrementality factor on those or not? Or do those still look pretty good in platform?
Those look pretty good in platform, but then they look in this case, it looked extremely good in terms of incrementality. So I do think, so you could argue that even at we wouldn't do this because I think this is a big assumption, but you could make the argument, hey, we could take half the ROAS on our next new launch, our next new tattoo design or whatever. We're actually comfortable with half the ROAS because we know the incrementality factors 5x or whatever. Like there is a lot of room for performance to deteriorate before it gets anywhere near unprofitable. So you could think we'd probably scale a lot, but that's probably the next test. But in your case, Cody, maybe it would be worth testing the new products that are just more interesting, right? Like they're getting clicks, they're getting awareness. It's more memorable to some degree. Like maybe that's just selling more miracle bombs.
Hopefully, yeah. And how are you measuring what they buy? Like what the other products people are buying with that is?
So I had the Northbeam team export they were actually, for me, able to export all of the line items attributable to order IDs from the MTA on a 7-day click basis. Because I don't know how else you would get that. You could maybe get it from Google Analytics. It'd be a total pain in the ass. But they were able to export that all for me.
Could you add like I was gonna ask the same thing. Could you add like a UTM filter? Like, hey, show me all revenue, all orders that have this like campaign UTM attached to it, and then also have like a product column, and then you could see the distribution that way. Obviously, that would only be on last click. But
in GA,
yeah, in GA, or even like right in Shopify.
You could do it in GA. You could do it in Shopify. You would just there'd be fewer orders. I don't know what the difference would be, but I think it would be at least, you're probably getting twice as many attributable orders from the Northbeam data.
Right. And we've done that with that's what we did with the Elevar events, where we'll actually go in platform and say, hey, of all, of 300 orders attributed to this campaign promoting knives, what's the split here, which gets us more than what we would see in the MTA, because we're optimizing for a 7-day click for most of the time. Cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
We have 0 customer support ticket backlog right now, which is awesome. And it's all because we switched to Rich Panel at the start of Q4. Q1 is usually when we're absolutely drowning in customer support tickets from Black Friday and holiday season. But right now we have none. So was it risky switching our tech stack right before peak season? Sure, but I couldn't be happier with the decision. Since switching to Rich Panel, we've gone from overwhelmed to having an empty inbox, which is the place we want to be. Here are 3 of my favorite things with Rich Panel so far. Number 1, if you know me, you know I love saving costs. So we save costs on the actual software by 50% right away. Much better deal. We also, I love it. The features, we have better features, better support. I see our team going back and forth with Rich Panel. Even the CEO, Amit, is in there all the time, giving our team support, building out new features for us. Immediate impact. The analytics are great, as the automations are amazing. The AI social media moderator as well, you name it. There's just been so many features that we've been able to add on to either reduce our tickets or increase our efficiency, which is the name of the game. Second thing is we've actually had 1.26 million in revenue generated from our CX team in the last 4 months, literally turning CX from a cost center to a profit center. And third is getting early access to all their new features that are being released, like updated analytics dashboard, a bunch of AI stuff, AI social media manager, you name it. It's been super helpful for us. You probably have a backlog of meta ad comments if you're one of the operators and spending heavily. And that's where I love the AI social media manager. You're able to set everything up, automate it. It's able to learn from your best agents, your best replies. People think it's a human. It's amazing. And it's allowing us just to get back to everybody, offer a better customer experience, answer questions to get our ads performing better. So I love it. If you want to join the 2,000 plus 7, 8, and 9 figure brands that switch to Rich Panel to save money, save time, and keep your customer service team happy, I highly recommend it. We switched at a really important time and they came through for us. So if you want to slash your customer support expenses by at least 30% overnight while reducing tickets, go to richpanel.com/demo to book a call and learn more. That's richpanel.com/demo.
Connor, you said something earlier about with the strategies and the tactics in the ad account for a $10 million brand versus a $100 million brand, very different. Cody, do you think a brand doing $10 to $20 million in top line revenue per year should be playing around with like non-purchase conversion objectives? And if yes or no, and if yes, like, what do you think the method is to measure that, knowing that they probably aren't having like an MMM tool or a household out type tool?
No, I don't. I think it's important to remember that everything that 3 of us say is not financial advice, and nobody should listen to us. But no, I think obviously a disclaimer that we weren't running this from the beginning. We weren't running this when we were $10 million brand. So it's just the necessary strategy for the stage in the game and Meta's current position, but I don't think it's nearly as big of a problem for a smaller brand, probably until you get, for us, I think it was probably 50 to 75 million is when we started to feel it. Maybe a little bit larger. Yeah, maybe around 75 million run rate. I would say first, like, do you have an incrementality problem? Like, is there a hypothesis? Like, are you just testing it and is somebody just wanting to do it because that's what they should be doing? They feel like they should be doing, or are they seeing some signs in their business? And it'll depend on TAM. Like Connor was saying, like you might be able to not, need this until $200 million if you're in a huge TAM. I think some of it depends on what your other traffic sources are, and hopefully you have something else. I think that's where I would say is hopefully you have another traffic source that's not Meta purchase optimized. And, I think for $10 million rounds, like influencer would probably be the best one. I think that is the best, most scalable channel because you can send 3 boxes out a month or you can send 3,000, right? It's not like TV where you have to be spending, a certain amount to really be able to do it properly. But no, I would say you better have like a really damn good reason to do it. And I would recommend not. And, most of your budget should probably be on Meta. I mean, most people are going to have their budget there. And if business is good, that is probably doing pretty well. And there are ways to, I think, validate, like when we launched TikTok, for example, or even YouTube before we, were on board with House, like we looked at post-purchase survey and, hopefully you're small enough where you can see as your budgets scale up and you start spending $5,000 a day on a channel, you should see more people saying, hey, I found you on this channel. It's not perfect, but you should be able to see it. And you should see it in your MER and your contribution margin if things are working out properly as well.
Yeah, and that's a good answer. Two things that I hear in that, and I'd be curious if you agree, Cody. One is bringing up channels is a great point. That like before, you're probably better off testing a YouTube or a partnerships before non-purchase optimized events on Meta. I would agree with that. And then also, if I'm a $10 or $20 million brand and I'm at all worried about incremental impact, you probably have a content problem. Like we're also talking about, you bring up the Javi example from House, or like we're finding with problem solution videos in top of funnel technically, but like even still, it's just like, how do you best articulate and introduce, how do you articulate a problem and solution if that's relevant to your brand? And how are you introducing people to the brand, and what is the content format that's best to do that? Those are the two things that I'd probably be thinking about first.
Yeah. Like purchase conversion and like building awareness they're not exclusive from one another. Like I think people hear like purchase conversion, they're like, well, how am I going to build brand awareness? It's like, to your point, run a really good brand, product, whatever explainer video in a purchase conversion campaign, and you're simultaneously building awareness, but you're doing it within an audience that, Facebook thinks is also going to turn into a buyer at some point. And like, I think the $10 million, I think Cody, your example of just like following the post-purchase trend and being like small enough to be able to see like the cause and effect there is a really good way to look at it. And also, the rolling reach exercise, Connor, that you outlined however long ago in the operators episode, like as long as you're still reaching a bunch of net new people in Meta, there's probably, and the performance is good, there's probably no reason for you to go move away from that. If that starts to go down, then yeah, maybe you go and you invest in new creative or influencer or brand partnerships. But I think if those two things look good, there's no reason to.
Yeah, if you're struggling to reach new people on Meta at 10 million, and again, that's a pretty big business, so like that's great. But you probably have bigger problems if you're not reaching new people, purchase optimized at 10 million. Like it's either TAM, product, messaging,
you've got
creative,
3 ads in the account,
something like that. Yeah. And by the way, at our size, I think we have a content problem. I think that we could potentially not need these things or need less of them if we had the creative to better reach new audiences as well. I think some of it was forced on us by our own wrongdoing, right? That's how I'm trying to almost think about new like audiences on Meta as channels. And I think it's really easy to think about it and be like, okay, we're going to go create this funnel for TV or for YouTube. But for Meta, it's kind of like, hey, like we need to do the same thing. Like if we would put 50 grand into testing Agentio or test influencers, like we need to put 50 grand into like creative for this new, persona, and build landers and build funnels and like be really strategic and give it a much bigger effort and like think about that as a new channel. And I think that's at least like the framework that I'm trying to kind of take into this year and push things forward this year is like giving things a much bigger effort and not just going other channels or not just going other optimizations. And it's not to say they're not important. It was just what we did last year. And that was what we focused on. And I think we got pretty good at measuring some of them and finding things that win. I mean, TV is now 20% of our budget, but I think we neglected Meta. And so some of it is you might not need to do as much of this stuff or do it as early if you are pushing audiences with creative, which we're not doing a good enough job of currently.
All right, that's a wrap on this episode of the Marketing Operators Podcast. We hope you enjoyed that one on all things meta non-purchase conversion events and the thoughts and strategies and tactics around that. Thank you to our sponsors, Motion, Rich Panel, Prescient, Aftersell, and House. And as always, if you're enjoying the show, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with some of your marketer buddies.